Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today is the day. Training camp officially kicks off for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, technically, it kicked off last Tuesday because that's when the rookies came in. But you know, training camp really kicks off when the veterans get here. That's when everything gets started. It feels like the first official day of the NFL when training camp kicks off officially for everybody once the veterans come in. So today is that day. The veterans are coming in, training camp officially kicks off, and we are back on the journey. So, I'm gonna be honest, this is going to be a very, very eventful training camp. At least I believe it's going to be the case, specifically because of a lot of the new pieces we have defensively. Now, I tweeted this out a while back, and that's going to be my main focus because there's so many aspects that we could talk about when it comes to training camp, but today I want to focus on this specific aspect. I tweeted this out a while back, and it was regarded to the defense heading into training camp. I tweeted out that I personally hope the Ravens defense dominates the Ravens offense in training camp this year. And my reasoning for that is simple. The Ravens offense is going to be one of, if not the best offense in football this year. That's what they were last year. That's what they're going to be this year. They're always going to be in the running. This offense is not going to have a problem consistently putting up 30 points. Look at the weapons you have. Look at the talent you have. We know what to expect from the Ravens offense. Here's the thing. We're not quite sure what we're going to get from the Ravens defense. Feel however you want to feel about the 2024 Ravens defense. The first 11 weeks, they were the worst pass defense in the National Football League. From weeks 11 through 18, everything shifted at that point. And that was because they made the major change of getting rid of Eddie Jackson, benching Marcus Williams, and moving back Kyle Hamilton to that free safety spot, and then playing Ardarius Washington with them. Those changes ultimately led to the Ravens defense returning to form and becoming that dominant defense we expected to see. But besides that, there were still issues with the Ravens defense. And of course, we don't need to go too much into it. You know who I'm talking about on that defense. He's not there anymore. We move off of that. So you replace some Marcus Williams, you replace an Eddie Jackson, you move off of said individual. Okay, let's not play around. Brandon Stephens. You move off of Brandon Stephens and you add pieces. So we go from having Marcus Williams and Brandon Stephens in our secondary to drafting Malachi Starks, signing Chidobe Awuzie, and then signing Jaire Alexander. So when you take a look at the level of talent that is on this defense, there's a lot of potential, especially if guys can stay healthy. And that's where my main focus is. Marlon Humphrey talked about this in his latest press conference when he was speaking on the Ravens defense. He wants the Ravens to be known for their dominant defense once again. He wants that defense to take the center stage once again. Now, with Lamar Jackson being here, we know that's not going to be the case anymore. He's the face of the franchise. The defense is never going to be seen as the aspect of conversation for the Ravens. It'll always be discussed because this franchise was built on defense. Ray Lewis built this franchise on defense. We know that. But with Lamar being the face of the franchise now, he's going to be the topic of conversation no matter what. But that Ravens defense will always be the second most discussed topic when it comes to Ravens. Number one is Lamar Jackson, of course, and number two will be that defense. And last year, that Ravens defense was getting cooked by the media because that's not the defense we expected to see, especially because they were a year removed from having a dominant defense that had the triple crown. You know, they had the number one scoring defense, led the league in takeaways, and led the league in sacks. You had the triple crown defense in 2023. You essentially brought the same players back in 2024, and you were that poor throughout the first 10 weeks of the season. The first half of the season, you were so poor as a defense, even though you had the same names in the secondary. That was concerning. So the Ravens have to return to form defensively. And Marlon Humphrey spoke about wanting to have the defense be the forefront of conversations for the Ravens, wanting that to be their identity again. Because Lamar is here, that's never going to be the case. However, I agree with this assessment of the defense returning to form. If this team is going to be able to win a championship, it is going to start and end with that defense. That's just how it's always been in Baltimore. Even though we've got Lamar in this explosive offense, that defense has always been the catalyst, the heart and the soul of this franchise. When the offense is poor, we're used to it. We don't want it to be poor, but we're used to it. But when our defense plays poor, that's what hurts us. That's what pisses us off, because that is the identity of the Ravens. That's how it's been built. So when our defense is playing poor, it doesn't feel like we're watching the Ravens play. When the defense is the worst passing defense in the league through 10 weeks of football, it doesn't feel like we're watching the Baltimore Ravens. So this defense has to return to form. And the best way they can showcase that, at least in terms of the beginning, is by going out here and dominating in training camp. You see the names we have on the defense. You're gonna have Marlon Humphrey. You're gonna have Kyle Hamilton. You drafted Malachi Starks. You've got Jair Alexander, Chidobe Awuzie. You've got talent in this secondary, alongside of Nate Wiggins and others. Roquan Smith still here. Trenton Simpson is going to be a conversation that we're going to have to speak on, and we'll see how he goes. You look at the front seven, you added Mike Green, you still have Odafe Owe, who is on a contract here and is coming off of a season in which he had 10 sacks. Kyle Van Noy is still here. You still have a lot of great pieces. This defense can be dominant if they're able to put it together. And the clearest sign of that level of dominance is if they are able to dominate in training camp. If they're going out there and shutting down Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense, that is going to be a great sign for things to come. Because this Ravens defense has to return to form. That secondary has to return to form. If there's two things they need to make sure to do, they've got to be better in coverage. Because last year, that was killing them throughout the first half. Jamar Chase himself torched our defense tremendously in the 2 games he played against us. That has to change. So the coverage has to be better. Tackling could be improved, but they did a relatively good job tackling. I mean, they had a lot of practice tackling because they were giving up wide open, they're giving up catches to wide open receivers. So they were obviously tackling a lot. But yeah, they have to improve in the coverage, and they need to improve in creating takeaways. 2 years ago, they led the league in takeaways. They've got to get back to that. And you've got the talent here in the secondary to make that happen. Like I said, Jair Alexander, Chidobe Awuzie, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins. You've got the talent here. Malachi Starks, who you just drafted. You've got so much talent in the secondary. They have to return to form. Roquan Smith's going to be Roquan Smith. That front seven did a good job last year. They were great with the run defense, and they still did a good job in creating sacks. Now, in terms of generating pressure, that is something they need to improve on. But we will talk about that aspect specifically because we have to have a discussion about the potential of Mike Green, which we will do at a later time. But overall, we need to focus in on this defense returning to form, and it starts with their secondary. Their run defense was great throughout the season. Now, through the first half, people weren't running on us like that because it's easy to just sit back and air the ball out when you got receivers open and you can abuse Marcus Williams and you can abuse Brandon Stevens all day long. It's easy to just air the ball out. But the run defense was still great. Throughout the entire season, they were great. Even when the changes were made, they were great the entire year. So I still expect them to be able to do a relatively good job in stopping the run. It just comes down to the secondary being able to do their job in coverage and creating turnovers. So we have to see them to return to form. There's so much potential with this defense. There's so much potential with this secondary. As long as they can stay upright, they can truly become a dominant unit. And if that secondary can return to form, if that secondary can return to its level of dominance, it doesn't have to be the best of the best of the best of the best, although they have the potential to be, but they should be out there just dominating. They have the talent. They have the players. They have the skill sets to lock up anybody. With that secondary, with that amount of talent, if those guys are on the field together, they should be able to lock up any receiving unit with that amount of talent, as long as they're on the field. And they certainly should be able to generate more turnovers. We need to see this Ravens defense return to its dominant form, both in the regular and the postseason. And that is vital. It is crucial when it comes to creating turnovers. Another aspect Marlon Humphrey talked about, creating turnovers in the playoffs, because you're not fully doing your job if you're not taking the ball away. His words, not mine, and I 100% agree with him. This is the perfect time, training camp. training camp's the perfect time, is the perfect moment, is the perfect opportunity to showcase the potential of this Ravens defense. If they come out here and dominate in training camp, they're locking receivers up, they're making plays, they're making stops, and they're creating turnovers. If they can do that against this Ravens unit, they can do that against any offense in the National Football League. And it'll ultimately come down to that. So I'm very excited to see what this Ravens defense is going to do in training camp. But it's going to be a lot because this Ravens offense is explosive. But if they showcase their capabilities and can work together as a unit, because they certainly have the talent to do so, if they can showcase that level of dominance in training camp, this defense will be set to be a fantastic defense this year, a dominant defense this year, and hopefully a defense that will be dominant and carry that level of dominance into the playoffs and hopefully help lead this team to a championship. We will have to wait and see, but training camp has officially kicked off. Let's see how these practices are gonna go. With that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I've got, and I'm out of here. Be sure to stay safe and peace out.